Right, so welcome everyone to our Monday evening yin class. So we will need some props. If you've got a couple of pillows, if you haven't got a bolster, that would be really good. Maybe a blanket, maybe a cushion. So we're actually going to come into child's pose to start. And if you have a bolster, if you don't have a bolster, use a couple of pillows. And this is kind of an invitation. If this doesn't work for you, then just don't do it. But we're going to rest the hands or the wrists on the bolster as we come into child's pose. And you might need something for the forehead, like a brick or a cushion if you have one. And really what we want to have a look for is that opening into the shoulders. But equally, not using any prop can be actually quite an opening into the shoulders as well for child's pose. So play around with that a little bit. You might just be in normal child's pose, hands reaching forward but elbows soft. You might have the knees a bit wider than the hips so that the belly sinks in between the legs, or you might have the belly on the legs, on the thighs, so depending on what's going on. But equally, just do your kind of normal child's pose as well. You can find that's pretty opening into the shoulders as well. So take your time to find one of those. And hello, Lindsay, welcome. And as you settle in there, take some longer, deeper breaths. Feel that you can release here into this space, into your body. And gradually letting the day go. So gradually take your time to transition to this space. To feel yourself becoming present here, not expecting it to happen quickly. The mind might be racing around with all the things you've been doing today, or all the things still to be done. So just notice if that's the case, notice how the mind is, notice how the body feels. And kind of notice what you're bringing to your mat. And when you notice, if you notice the mind very busy, just feel that what you can do is bring your awareness to the breath. And feel the rise and fall of the chest. Feel the rise and fall of the belly. And as the breath comes in and goes out, there might be that gradual settling physically and mentally. There's no rush to get there. So we've been exploring the habitual ways of thinking that we can all have, becoming more aware of perhaps the themes or the stories that we tell ourselves. Some of them not so helpful, and some of them even quite detrimental to our well-being. So we've been shining maybe a gentle light of awareness on our thought patterns, and this week will be particularly about the inner voice that lives primarily within our minds, but also can affect our bodies, can affect our hearts, can affect how we show up in the world. And today we'll just be a little bit curious about its character, the way it presents, the way it makes us feel. And kind of from that place of curiosity and awareness, we'll just see if we can gain some perspective on it. And just enough perspective to enable us to perhaps interact with this inner critic in a more skillful way. So quite often we can have that inner voice that just runs away with itself, and we just let it be what it wants to do, what effect it has on us. So instead, with our mindfulness practice, we can shine a light on it, bring perspective to it, and see it for what it really is. And many of you will have explored this with me before, but I've put this one in again because I think it's so important for our happiness and our well-being. So perhaps seeing it with new eyes, or exploring it just in a slightly different way. But take another deep inhale. And as you exhale, release the hands beside the body. So you can stay in your child's pose, you can release any props if you do have any there, and just release them beside the body and release the shoulders. And we'll work a little bit physically into the chest, into the heart, maybe the sides of the body, and kind of welcoming in that self-love and self-compassion as a kind of antidote to the inner critic that we all have. Maybe sometimes it can be very strong, and sometimes it's just kind of niggling away in the background. So yeah, kind of opening into shoulders, chest, heart space, making space. So then as you inhale, come up to your tabletop, and you can then press that left hand into the mat and inhale to bring the right hand up. And as you exhale, release the hand underneath the left. And you could just settle straight in if that feels good, or you could do that a couple of times. If you feel a bit of movement would actually be really nice here. The right hip can go over to the right a little bit, so you could open through the side. And then as you exhale, bringing the arm underneath. You might do that one more time, pressing into the left hand, lifting up. And then exhaling underneath. And as you settle in, the hips stay lifted, the shoulder comes down, and the side of the head comes down. And if you have a cushion or a folded blanket, that you might use that for the head if it feels quite strong. That left hand could stay where it is, it could reach forward, or it could come behind the body, onto the lower back or the right hip. So find that place to settle into here. Feel that in a physical sense with your breath. You can almost kind of bring it into the center of the chest, kind of activating that area. Allowing the prana to swirl around the heart. Allowing the rib cage to expand and contract with the breath. The breath might feel a little bit deeper and longer, but there's no force. There's no needing the breath to be as deep as it possibly can be, just a general lengthening. And remembering that when the mind wanders away, which no doubt it will, the objective is to become aware of the thoughts. And in some ways, when the mind is busy, it gives us a more interesting place to watch. Because if we just have a very blissful, quiet practice, and it doesn't tell us very much, it doesn't invite us to kind of bring awareness to the thought patterns. So use that. Don't think that it needs to be different. Use that as a way of delving further into the thoughts and what might be behind the thoughts. And when you notice your thinking, just come back to the breathing. But just note the kind of thoughts that are there. Take another long, deep breath. And as you exhale, bring that left hand back onto the mat if it is away, and then use that hand to press your way back up. And before you go on to the other side, you might just sit back to child's pose if you feel you just need a bit more stillness this evening, or you might have some movement, so circles through the hips, cat-cow, or even a down dog. So use your intuition to kind of really know where you need to go and what the body needs. Might be even a bit of both. But either way, you're just taking your time to move from one pose to the next. And when you're ready, you can press that right hand into the mat. Inhale to lift the left. That left hip might move over to the side. It's like a big inhale opening through the side, and then as you exhale, the hand coming underneath the right. You might settle straight in, or you might do that a couple more times so you feel a little bit more open in that side. But, you know, as ever, that listening into the body. Some days it's just more stillness, more quiet that is required. And then the next time you come down, shoulder, side of the head, maybe a pillow. Choose where that right hand is going to be. And then settle in. And coming back to that awareness of breath around the heart. And it's worth remembering that thoughts in themselves are not problematic. They're quite essential. But they become unhelpful or even harmful when they are maybe repetitive or persistent or self-critical. That's particularly what we're looking for this evening, these recurring self-critical thoughts that perhaps make us feel that we're not enough. They might reduce our opportunities for joy and happiness. And it's worth noting that negative self-talk can actually stimulate the stress response, so that fight, flight, freeze mode in the body. And that in itself isn't a problem. That's actually a really useful part of our system, but when it is in use over a long period of time, it can lead to unnecessary worry and anxiety, fear, and low self-worth, low self-esteem. And really, if these negative thoughts are just kind of left to roam as they please, they can have a profound impact on the way that we see ourselves and the way that we interact with those around us and just in life in general. So take another long, deep breath here. And as you exhale, slowly release, planting that right hand back down to come back. Any movement or just simple stillness if that's what you need this evening. And if it's movement, then it's mindful movement. going to take either a bolster or the side of a chair or side of the bed, whatever you've got handy. I'm going to show you here with a bolster. So we're going to bring the soles of the feet together for like that cobbler's pose. So make sure that you've got some space between feet and pelvis. And then your prop, we're going to take opposite elbows and then rest the forearms on the prop, whether it's the bed or the sofa. And so it's not so much of a deep forward fold, rather an opening into the armpits and the shoulders. So what I find is using the bolster, you need to kind of hold on to the elbows a little bit more than perhaps if you're using the side of the bed or the sofa. And then nestle the forehead down, and do try to find a place that you can release. So if you need maybe pillows either side of the legs, you could do that as well if it feels quite a big opening into the inner groin area. But kind of our target area is not so much the back of the body or even the inner legs really. It's more about this opening into the shoulders and also the armpits. So try to find that place which works for you. So yeah, if you're using bolster, take hold of opposite elbows there, Alison. So take the elbows like that if that feels okay, and you might find you can release. Otherwise you might kind of feel like you're holding yourself there. And we want to try and let go if we can. And again, it's that kind of awareness of the breath moving around the heart, center of the chest. So the front of the chest, the sides of the chest, and also the back of the body. So that we sense and feel that the heart space is all the way around, rather than just in the center of the chest. Settling here. As best you can. And see if you can create a bit of softness into the shoulders and a softness into the jaw and the mouth and even the tongue in the mouth. See if you can create some softness into the belly and around the hips and the pelvis. So you can just settle a little bit more into your body. And maybe even remembering that it's okay to take this time for yourself. That you deserve this opportunity for rest, for reflection, for awareness. And that it's not a waste of time. And notice how the breath comes in and how the breath goes out. So really follow that journey of the breath in and out of the body. How there's not a great deal that you actually need to do. The breath just comes and goes. How your body breathes on its own. Feeling perhaps safe and secure and in that intelligence in your body and your breath. That sense of calm that the breath can bring you sometimes. take some longer, deeper breaths here. So now just guiding the breath in a little. And notice the difference. Notice how it feels to guide the breath in just slightly deeper. And when you're ready, slowly begin to release. Moving any props out of the way, and if you need any movement when you come out, obviously help the knees come back in. Take any movement, but then come to lie on your belly and maybe have the arms beside the body, one cheek on the earth. But take any movement that you need first. And take your time to get there. And when you come down on your belly, you can just rest the head, rest the cheek on the earth. Let your body feel heavy. Just for a few rounds of breath. Yeah, if you need to, you can make a pillow with the hands rather than having the arms beside the body. Either is fine. And then when you're ready, come into your Sphinx pose. So forearms on the mat, elbows perhaps under the shoulders or further forward of the shoulders. Or you could bring the hands onto the temples and allow the head to rest into the temples. I find that lessens the back bend, which is quite nice at times if this feels like a little bit too much of a back bend. Equally, you could bring the head just back down onto the hands, and that might be enough as well. So find one of those that makes sense, and then let the front of the body really rest into the earth. So the only kind of yang that's going on here is the arms. And see if you can soften the shoulders away from the head. Soften the belly into the earth. And then can you begin to move your awareness to your mind and become aware of how your mind feels today? You know, maybe you've already noticed that it feels busy or scattered or very alert or peaceful, quiet. And just consider, how would you describe the tone of your thoughts today? Do they feel supportive or self-critical or quite neutral? So nothing to do with this reflection. Just being open and curious. No need to judge, just becoming aware. And then taking a long deep breath in. And as you exhale, you might release the other cheek onto the mat and the arms beside the body, or just the head onto the hands again. And you could just remain still, or if you feel you need a bit of movement, you could bring the feet into the air and move the feet side to side. Just a little bit of gentle swaying through the hips. But equally, you could just remain still as well. And then as you inhale, come back onto the forearms, and we're going to bring the right arm reaching forward. At this point, you might bring a cushion underneath the side of the head, the right side of the head, bending into the left leg so that the left knee is roughly in line with the hip, and then bending into the right leg and reach round with the left hand to take the right foot or ankle. So hopefully you've got that. Right hand is reaching forward, left knee is bending, and the front of the right thigh is on the mat. And then this might be where you stay. You might feel quite a lot here into that right shoulder and that, left shoulder and right thigh. Or you could start to turn more onto the right side so that that left shoulder begins to move over towards the right. The left knee will keep you anchored. Or at least that's the idea. See if you can stay anchored. And you're opening into that left side. So it becomes a bit of a twist. You might sense it into the right thigh. And just find a place where you can kind of soften into. It can be quite intense. So find a place where the head can really be soft. And you're not holding the head or the neck. Find softness across the jaw again, across the shoulders, the belly. And with all of these poses, remembering that there is an edge, your physical edge. You don't want to go beyond that. So always back away, always come back a little bit if you need to. And that is always available to you, doesn't matter what pose you're in. We always want to stay in that place where we can be with the sensations. They're not so strong that they take over our whole experience, but they're a deep stretch for the body, but a kind of nice stretch. And then turning your attention to some of the self-critical thoughts that you might be aware of already that kind of live within your mind. And maybe these are very loud. Maybe they just kind of are quite subtle in the background, like a little niggling. But can you become aware of some of the themes that regularly fill your mind? Maybe you're critical of your physical appearance. Maybe you're hard on yourself when you make mistakes or when things don't go to plan or how you expected. Do you set yourself really high expectations and you feel you have to strive and meet them no matter what? Do you worry that you're not good enough at your job or a role that you have in life? So is there this kind of quiet voice in the back of your mind, just always kind of whispering that you don't deserve happiness, you're not worthy? Just spending a few moments here, just noticing what comes up. Trying not to grab, trying not to push away or even analyze. Seeing what is there. Take some longer, deeper breaths now. When you feel ready, slowly release. And again, you might just stay on your belly, but before you go on to the other side, you might feel you need some proper movement. So if you want to come back to tabletop, any movement that you need there, maybe just a child's pose. So absolutely no right or wrong between poses. It's really just guided by what you need. When you feel ready to move on, there's no rush, but then you can come back onto your belly, reach that left hand forward. Make sure that the head can release. Bend into the right leg. I like to keep the front of that left thigh on the mat. I find that gives me a better stretch, but see what works for you, and then you can reach round with the right hand to take hold of the ankle or the foot. And then it's that gradually releasing the right shoulder towards the right. But the head is staying heavy and soft, so you're not holding the head. Do make sure that it can release. You might need a pillow, cushion. And it's that opening through the right shoulder, side of the chest. It might feel like a little bit of a twist. And also an opening through that left thigh. But as ever, no pain, no issues. A place where you can release. And now seeing if you can hold one of these thoughts in your mind's eye. And don't think too much about this. Whatever comes, just whatever emerges naturally, then just hold it there for a moment. And we'll see if we can ask it some questions, just as a way of understanding it a little bit more. So let's ask this thought, are you kind? Do you help me be the person I want to be? Do you inspire me to be the best version of myself? How does this thought make me feel in the body? How does it feel in the heart? And through this inquiry and reflection, does this thought begin to change? Does it feel any different? Perhaps it can start to feel less true or powerful. You maybe feel less attached to it as you did before. And through this act of awareness, are you able to see if you're able to release the grip that it might have? And if that's possible, you might take some deeper breaths in and out. And as you exhale, allowing the thought to become a little bit smaller or less powerful in your mind, in your body, in your heart. And noticing any sense of release, relaxation, maybe lightness. letting it go so that you can rest in peace and stillness. And that deep awareness that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices your thoughts. Take some longer, deeper breaths again. Breathing into this. And when you feel ready to release, come back maybe onto your belly, pausing. Or maybe hands back under the shoulders, moving back to child's pose, or any movement that makes sense. And when you feel ready, we're going to make a little bit of a supported back bend. So if you have a bolster, you probably know what you're doing. And if you've not done this with me before, you can have a look. So if you're using pillows, make sure that you've got a bit of a step between each thing that you put on top. I find a blanket or two on top just makes the pillows not so squishy. And then maybe a cushion for your head. And then you want to make sure that the pelvis is really nice and close to the props. So really kind of nestle them in to the lower back pelvis and then rolling over. And if you're using a bolster, just make sure that it's not too much of a back bend. If it is, you might find that you have to lift the bolster and bring something underneath it so that there's no pain into the lower back. You want it to be an opening into the pelvis and the belly and the chest, but not so much that you're kind of you've got niggles in the lower back. I actually prefer to use pillows now. I don't even use my bolster for this anymore because the pillows are so lovely. So find your way into that. We will be here a little while, a little bit longer than maybe some of the other poses. So do make it cozy and comfortable. Make sure that the head can release and soften. The back of the neck supported. The shoulders can rest down. You might have the arms a little bit away from the body, palms up, just to create that tiny little bit further opening into the shoulders and the collarbones. Or equally, the hands might be on the belly or the chest, so just go with what feels right. Soften the spine down into the prop. And the whole of the back of the body resting into this. The legs can be heavy and soft, and the feet, however you have them. So whatever is comfortable. And become aware again of the breath and that journey of breath. So how the breath comes in at the nostrils, moves through the nostrils, down past the throat, into the lungs, the chest, the abdomen, and how it moves out again, back to the nostrils. So just follow that breath a few times. Perhaps sense and feel how the in-breath helps to awaken and enliven the body. And perhaps how the exhale allows the body to release and let go. Or however you experience the breath. But notice the differences between the inhalation and the exhalation, if there is any for you. And let the journey of the breath go. And be curious one more time, inviting in another negative or self-critical thought or belief in your mind. And just noticing how this thought makes your body feel. Noticing what this thought does to the state of your heart. And you can ask it again. Is it a kind thought? Does it help you to be the person you long to be? Does this thought inspire you or hold you back? And when you let this thought take hold in your mind, what does it do to your perspective? Perhaps narrowing it. And as you become aware of all of this, take some deeper, fuller breaths and notice if this thought begins to change. Perhaps feeling different, perhaps less true, less potent. Perhaps you're able to interact with it in a different way. And as you exhale, use that power of the exhalation so that it can release and leave your mind and leave your body and leave your heart. And perhaps resting one more time in that awareness that you are not your thoughts. You are the deep awareness that notices your thoughts. So beginning to take some deeper breaths. And when you feel ready to move, maybe draw the knees in, bend the knees. You might roll off of your props Roll to one side. And when you do come out, any movements that you need to take, but then come down onto your back. Yeah, moving your props out of the way, lying on your back. And you could just have the soles of the feet onto the mat for the time being as you come to lie down. You might just tuck under through the pelvis, back of the body long. And then draw the knees into the chest. And there might be some movement, yep, moving side to side or circles. And then we'll reach between the legs to take hold of the ankles. So our soft, happy baby. And as you settle into that happy baby, just see if you can soften shoulders down, back of the head. If you need anything underneath the head, then do have that so that there's no strain in the neck. And also have a little bit of drawing in through the belly. So we're lying on our backs, reaching between, taking the ankles, draw the chin towards the chest. And really it's about lengthening the back. Does that make sense? Yeah, and you can either stay there, just taking the ankles, or you can reach further down to take the outsides of the feet and bring the soles of the feet into the air. But remember your edge. You know, we might feel that this is okay for a little while, but then need to come back. I find full happy babies pretty strong, and it might mean that there becomes tension in the neck or the shoulders. So listen into that. And I think our yoga practice is a wonderful way to become aware of those critical thoughts as well, because we can have that sense of, oh, I should be able to do this by now, or I was able to do this a week ago. And really what that does is just shows us those patterns of thinking. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we want to bring to the surface. So when you notice that, try and bring some perspective around it. Don't push it away. Don't feel that it needs to be different. Actually try to be curious about it. See where it might come from. See the effect it has on your physical body, as well as your well-being and your happiness. And it's this awareness that helps us to release things, to let them go, and to ultimately to create that change that we might be looking for. Taking some longer, deeper breaths. And as you exhale, slowly release. You might just bring soles of the feet onto the mat. You might lengthen the legs long. Or you might have a bit of movement. See what you need. We lost you there, Sophie. Not sure what happened, but we're still on our backs. We're soles of the feet on the mat or the legs long. And then we're going to move into a twist either side and then into our Shavasana. So if you have a favorite twist, feel free to take that, but you could lift the hips up, bring them over to the right ever so slightly, draw the knees in, and then bring the knees to the left. And allow the knees to stack, hips to stack as best you can there, and then moving that left shoulder over to the left, drawing that right shoulder down, maybe cactus arms, elbows in line with shoulders, maybe hands out in line with shoulders, maybe even hands overhead. Sometimes that can be quite nice as well, taking the wrists. And just finding that place to settle in. Couple of minutes on either side. So this exploration can be useful when we're on our mat, but quite often it's in everyday life that we become aware of these critical thoughts, and it's can often be, what do we do with them then when they kind of pop up in the middle of the day? And one of the acronyms that I came across, which wonderful lady shared with me, and it's called RAIN. And R stands for recognize. So as ever with these practices, it's about recognizing that that is what is happening. That is the thought pattern that is there. And then A is allow. So just for a moment, just allow it to be there. And then I is investigate. So get curious about it. Really see if you can find the root of the thought, or where it comes from. And then N is the non-attachment. So you're not feeling that you need to hold on to it anymore, feeling that it has any power over you, that it is possible to let it go. So you might remember this as you move through the following week. Just if it calls to you, if there's something there that you could just become more aware of and release, just remembering this. And then when you're ready, take an inhale to come back to the center. You might just bring the soles of the feet back down, shifting the hips over to the left a little. Draw the knees back in, and then knees to the right. And settling yourself down on that side. Couple of minutes here, just being with your breath and your body. And then those deeper breaths to gradually bring you back. And as you come back, any final movements that you feel you need, and then settle into your Shavasana. Making yourself comfy. Softening the body into the earth. Maybe hands on belly or heart or away from the body, palms up. Maybe chin just drops slightly to the chest, so the back of the neck is long. Shoulders moving away from the head. Belly soft. Legs, feet heavy. Arms and hands heavy. And an awareness settling at the heart. Feeling the heartbeat. Feeling the breath in the lungs around the heart. Feeling how your energetic heart fills the chest, and how big and wide it can sometimes feel. And with your breath and your awareness, you can help to nourish and take care of this precious heart of yours. And in doing so, knowing that you will then be able to nourish and take care of the special people in your life. So beginning to find your breath again. Long inhales, long exhales, and then slowly moving fingers and toes. Draw knees in, gradually coming back. And as you come back to sit, you might keep the gaze soft or the eyes closed, just keeping that landscape of awareness inwards just for a little bit longer. As you just come to sit and pause and be with your practice and how you feel now. And the Buddha said, you can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself, and that person is not to be found anywhere. So bringing hands to prayer at the heart center. Closing with one Om. Take a deep breath in. So thank you for your practice. Namaste.